It's for Tov,
Mitzivanu,
La'asot, Divrei Torah.
I was getting ready for today and I asked myself, have I recently said that this is the most incredible community I've ever worked with? This community right here. Have I ever said that? It's really true. It's really true. And with all the things going on, this is one of the few things I really look forward to. So anyway, good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos.
We're doing calendar, and we will do calendar. March 25th, now past, was Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther. Erev Purim is tonight, and tomorrow is Purim. And that's wrong. That is to say, right after Ta'anit Esther is supposed to be Purim. But right after Ta'anit Esther on Thursday was Shabbos. Thursday evening was Shabbos. And you can't have Purim on Shabbos. There are a whole bunch of things that we do, including carrying the Megillah and all kinds of other stuff that would not fit with Shabbos. So what we have is this Saturday, today, is not Shabbos. That's a title. It is not Shabbos. But it is something else. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. This is not only Shabbat in which we begin reading the first chapters of the book of Leviticus, the third book of the Torah. It also is Shabbat Zachor. Z-A-C-H-O-R, Shabbat Zachor. And I'm going to be spending a bunch of time today talking about how Shabbat Zachor, unfortunately, touches our daily lives now. So I'm going to go through the rest of the calendar. Sunday, March 24th. Oh, the most incredible program is happening. I'm sure I failed to mention it. Sunday, March 24th, tomorrow at 10 a.m., I will be doing a presentation with Leah Hochman on reforming Judaism at Resnick from 10 to 11:30. I have been assured that they may even serve a bagel. I don't know. I am not responsible for that. And the moderator for our discussion, a moderator will be Tamara Eskenazi. So we're going to have a lot of intelligent fun. And as I said to you earlier, even if you have already heard me do a presentation on this, or if you already have bought a book, we're trying to bump up attendance for tomorrow. So if there's any chance that you can come and join us 10 o'clock on Sunday, it would mean a lot for programming going forward. So that's Sunday. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. April 3rd is the next current events.
Morning, Bill.
Cindy, what's new with Sister?
Thank you.
Doris, can you mute?
I'm going to do that in a minute. I have to mute my sound because I've got the program on.
Doris, please mute.
Yes, I'm muting right now.
Okay, Wednesday we have the tour to the Adamson house. There's still a few openings. If anyone wants to join us, you just have to let me know, but transportation is on your own. It's only $7 for the tour, and then we're having a Greek lunch at Chevra Torah's afterwards. On the 29th, we're having Shabbat dinner at Froman's. It's hip hop Shabbat at Temple, so a lot of us have chosen not to attend hip hop, but you have to let Susie know if you want to see it at Froman's.
Susie, Risa, and I are coming. Hello.
I have your seat saved already.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Cindy. Thank you.
I'd be there if I had the money, but I get paid from my renter on the first. first, so I can't come, but I love you and miss.
Okay, Jim, what do you have?
This Thursday, we're going to discuss at the Film Society American Fiction. It's about an angry black professor who gets sacked because he's not overly woke enough. And it's a comedy. It's a very serious film about American culture, how we treat other people. It's also a story of personal transformation, much like The Holdovers is. It's really worth seeing. It's very clever, very fresh and original. It streams on Amazon Prime. It's called American Fiction, and we're going to talk about it 7:30 p.m. Thursday night.
On Zoom or at Resnick?
Always on Zoom. We did have a successful screening Wednesday at the synagogue, our first in 5 years, 6 years actually, of the Levees of Monticello about the Jewish family, which you missed, Susie. We missed you.
I know, I missed you.
A Jewish family that saved Monticello from total collapse and rehabilitated it over 90 years, and also encountered anti-Semitism in the doing. So very important subject, and the content's well presented. You can see it on HiFlix on your own.
When I was
Thank
in
you.
high school, I went to Roosevelt Junior High School, and the competing Jewish junior high school was Monticello Junior High School.
Oh, yeah.
I learned that the correct pronunciation is Monticello until I entered the larger world and found out that I have been abused by my teachers. So there. Yes, Monticello. Yes, indeed.
But we do look forward to having more screenings in the synagogue, in the chapel going forward.
Okay. I see Larry Wise. I see Natalie, Howard, Diane, Marina, Barbara. Okay, right. I guess this is our group. Eric and Ray and Kevin and Brad. Okay, nice, happy community. Now, so we're going to go unhappy. This is Shabbat Zachor. The word Zachor means remember. Zachor. And the Shabbatot before Pesach each have a special additional Torah reading. And we have a special additional Torah reading this Shabbat, Shabbat Zachor. So now I'm going to be doing a lot of Bible moving, and you don't necessarily have this. So trust me, I am turning to chapter 9 of the book of Esther. Chapter 9 of the book of Esther, and it is verse 16.
What
Chapter
page?
Verse 16, book of Esther. It's not in the regular Torah book from which we study. And here I go.
Ugh.
I even marked the page 1799. I can do this. There we go. Here we are. Okay, this is chapter 9 of the book of Esther, the book that will be read tomorrow night in synagogue, also the next morning. This is chapter 9, verses, we're going to do 16 through 18. No, we're going to do 16 through 19. Listen to this. This is the end of the book of Esther. This is the end of the book of Esther. And for many of us, this is a chapter which no synagogue outside of Orthodox and Conservative would ever read. But it is the end of the book of Esther.
Do we have another?
What?
Do we have another?
I don't know.
Okay,
No.
go ahead.
It's very short. This is from the end of the book of Esther. The rest of the Jews, those in the king's provinces, likewise gathered together and fought for their lives. They disposed of their enemies killing 75,000 of their foes.
Wow.
They didn't take any spoil. That was on the 13th day of the month of Adar. And they rested on the 14th day and made it a day of feasting and of merrymaking, mishteh v'simcha. But, this is verse 18, the Jews in Shushan mustered on both the 13th and 14th days and rested on the 15th. This is why village Jews who live in unwalled towns observe the 14th day of the month of Adar and make it a day of merriment and feasting, a holiday, sending gifts to the poor, mishloach manot. Now, some of you gasped a little bit. I did hear you. I was paying attention. When I read, they disposed of their enemies, killing 75,000 of their foes. The end of the book of Esther has the Jewish people rising up to defend themselves against the supporters of Haman, the supporters of Haman who had received the king's approval to slaughter the Jews. That approval could not be rescinded. If the approval could not be rescinded, then the Jews were authorized to defend themselves. And they defended themselves by slaughtering 75,000 Persians. They did this on the 13th day of the month of Adar and made the 14th day a day of feasting and merrymaking. Purim is observed in walled towns, got to remember this, for 2 days. 2 days of feasting and merrymaking. And for those of us who don't live in walled towns, in the villages, we observe it for 1 day. So we have the slaughter of the Persians amounting to 75,000 in what is described as a defensive act against the followers of Haman. Now we're weaving a story here. Please stick with me. We are now going in books that you do have to page 1335 in the Plout. 1335. We're going to Deuteronomy 25, 17 to 19. Page 1335. We're actually weaving an intelligible story. Lo and behold, it shows up exactly where it's supposed to be. I am now reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verses 17 to 19. Pay attention. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt. How undeterred by fear of God, Amalek surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary, and Amalek cut down all the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when the eternal your God grants you safety from all your enemies round about you in the land that the eternal God is giving you as a hereditary portion, blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. The Hebrew word at the beginning of this Torah segment, remember what Amalek did to you. The Hebrew word remember is zachor. So this is Shabbat Zachor when this passage is added to the regular Torah readings. Rashi wanted to know, why did this insertion about Amalek suddenly come into this portion of Deuteronomy? It doesn't flow from what went before or what comes after. It is a plug-in. Rashi notes it and says, well, right before it, it says you shouldn't cheat in business practices. Don't have unfair weights and measures. Don't cheat in your business. And so Rashi says what the text is saying, if you live an unethical life, Amalek will attack you. And that's how Rashi rationalized it. I don't believe that. But that's what Rashi says. Ramban looks at our little passage, 17 to 19, and says, don't forget, Zachor al Tishkach, until Amalek's name is really wiped out. Ramban is very clear. We're not talking hyperbole here. God wants Amalek wiped out. Abarbanel comments, Amalek went after the weak and defenseless. Jews must fight against Amalek forever.
Amen, Rabbi.
Now, what's the connection between remember what Amalek did to you and Purim? What is the connection?
May I say, Rabbi?
Pardon?
May I say what I think it is?
I'd rather have you raise your hand, Donna. That would really actually
I
be.
guess I'm sorry, apologize. There you go, I'll raise my hand. Okay,
No, please.
okay, I think it's the defenseless, the people that were gonna celebrate, the Jewish people in Shushan, not knowing they're gonna be murdered, being defensive, they had no way to protect themselves. That's the correlation. And why Esther stepped in, because there was already a command by the king and it could not be taken back. And that's why
Cindy, please.
It's thought that Haman, or said that Haman is a descendant of Amalek.
That is precisely and uniquely correct.
okay.
Haman is of the family of Amalek. So when they read Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek, remember what Amalek did to you, go out and kill them, wipe out their name. Haman is asserted to be of Amalek, and that gives the mandate for the slaughter of 75,000. Okay, I see, oh God, I think I'm going to be attacked. I see Natalie, and then I see Jim, and I see Eric. Go for it. Okay.
Okay, when I read this passage, I don't think of the holiday. I think about what's going on right now in Gaza and what has been going right on in our history of the Jews when we have been attacked over and over and over again. And I'm happy to see what it says here. You go and you destroy them, you get rid of them. And that is the conflict that's going on now in Gaza, whether we should finish it off or not. So we're not going to go into that, how everyone feels. But this passage gives permission to get rid of your enemies completely, because they are going to come and destroy you. And it has been our history from the beginning of time, and to play it in a sweet way is not realistic in history. So I'm happy to read this. Forget about Purim. This is what's going on exactly today in Gaza, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
Actually, I only disagree with one thing that you said, Natalie. We are precisely going to discuss that today. That's the point of my having raised.
Right, right.
This is a dramatic juxtaposition on
Right.
reality.
That's
Today.
what, yes.
I forget whom I said next. I'm sorry.
Take Eric and then I'll go.
I'm
What?
sorry,
Eric.
Eric.
I would say mega dittos to Natalie. That was what I was going to say. They want, and it's getting to be looking like the Weimar Republic all over again, if you know what I'm talking about. It sounds like you know what I mean by the Weimar Republic, where everything when anti-Semitism and Hitler and everything like that arose. You know what I mean? By the Weimar Republic.
Thank you for that. Okay, I see Mara and then Howard and Jim. At least I see those, yes?
My question has to do with the last statement in what you read from Deuteronomy. Thou shalt not forget. For me, the question is, what exactly should we not forget? And I don't think it's as simple as we shouldn't forget Amalek, and we should destroy anyone who would want to destroy us. There's a lot in the Torah that we should not forget, and it's not all about destroying others.
That's the discussion I was inviting for today. Thank you. Thank you. I get so mixed up. I'm sorry, my mind is blocking. Howard, Jim?
I would like to say that it is not a good idea or even valid to base something you want to do on one passage that you found in the Torah. You need to take, if you want to base your life on your actions on the Torah, you need to base it on all of the Torah. And in a specific matter, although it says here it gives you permission, there are other places the Torah is very clear. For example, in Exodus it says, "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord." The Jews are not allowed to take vengeance. So, especially when we know, where these statements came from, including ones probably like this one that were stuck into the text at some point for political reasons. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time basing my actions on one little thing that I found in the Torah somewhere. And I don't think Jews are allowed to take vengeance, and I think it was a big mistake to talk about vengeance.
I knew we were going deep today. Please, Jim.
I'm with Howard on this. You can't base your whole life's philosophy and attitude towards other people based on one passage. There's so many other passages in the Torah that we do ignore because they're just too out of date to accept, like stoning. So, it's like you can't blame take apart and say the whole is like that. Of the 75,000 people, how many really believed in Haman and what he represented? Just like how many of the Gazans really think Hamas is a good thing for their people. Not all of them, yet we destroyed 30,000 of them. But in Haman's time, we didn't have weapons of destruction like that. Imagine what it would take to destroy 75,000 people with knives. I mean, and what do you do with the corpses? What does this mean? Maybe it's apocryphal in that the emphasis is more upon memory than upon destruction of other people. But how can we ever erase from memory? I mean, this is Yerushalmi's thing about memory. We can never forget. So there are lessons in the tragedies, and to erase Amalek is to say, well, nobody's ever challenged us or will challenge us in the future. It just doesn't compute. I think we need, in this modern era, to take a modern approach, which is more objective and circumspect about the whole Torah and every portion in it, and apply it to ourselves as we can with our own values, while not forgetting what the values were at the time these passages were inserted into the text. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so far.
So far.
I like that.
Okay, Tamara?
Yeah, I agree that with both Jim and Howard, how important it is to not take one passage without weighing others or contemporary things. All I want to add is that I don't think in Esther or in Deuteronomy it is about vengeance or revenge. I think the message, and I don't mean to say I agree with it, I just want to clarify. It is assuming that the only way you can fight certain types of evil is by eradicating it to the core. The way, those of us who garden know it's not enough just to cut the weeds at the top, you have to pull out the roots. So I think the idea is you have to root it out, not just revenge. So it's not about revenge, it's about calculation, about safety. Now, again, we have to rethink it, but I think that's the message.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Rebecca.
This discussion is bordering on how we are all feeling about the Israeli-Hamas war. And I just want to point out that when the general consul and the CEO for APEC came to Resnick campus, what stuck to me most was that the Israeli-Hamas war is a religious war. And I think we forget that it's a religious war. It's Jews and Muslims. It's not a territorial war.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm looking for any other unique comments we made. Jim, I knew you.
Take Marina. Take
Okay,
Marina.
Marina. Okay, Marina.
I keep thinking about a group responsibility as we consider Russian-Ukrainian war. We hold Russian people in our minds responsible for supporting Putin and for placing him in the lead. During the Second World War, when German cities were bombed and civilians were killed, we still held them responsible for the evil of the Nazis. When the war in Gaza is going on, it breaks my heart that civilians suffer and get killed. But what can we do? How can Israel eradicate Hamas without getting into the territory? And if the majority of the population support Hamas and is shielding Hamas, how can the innocent victims be shielded? So it's all mixed up together. It's not the desire to kill, it's a necessity to, it's kind of a necessity of the war, I think.
Jim?
I want to go back to what Tamara said about we have to get to the root of the problem. It's not about killing the 75,000, but how did it pass that Haman's attitude and sensibility was transferred or passed down to his followers, to Amalek? And it's like this is the root of the problem is ideas and feelings, and we have to deal with the ill will people have towards each other and trace that to its roots. Not to get too political, but the people who elected Donald Trump the first time were aggrieved, white, unemployed, older men. And, looking back, some of the Democrats admitted we neglected their plight of unemployment, their sense of worthlessness. The culture made them feel excluded, and they embraced this demagogue who triumphed them and their grievances. So, not to apply that to Amalek so much, or the Book of Esther, but it's like the root of it is ideas that spread to comfort people because they're so desperate. When people are in hard times, they grasp at straws because how could things get worse? And of course, we find out, we know all the time, they can get worse as they have in Israel. So I disagree with the representative from Israel. Yes, it's a religious war. It's also a war of a real estate because the Palestinians have been made to feel they have no homeland. And, part of the problem is the PLO and the West Bank, and it's a mess. And I have no answer as to how do we educate people to deal with it more intelligently because it's too rooted, Tamara, excuse me, in ancient bias and in current wrongdoings. So I don't know how to proceed, but we have to
Okay.
be circumspect about it all.
Thank you. Let me point out
Uh,
that in the 1930s and beyond, when the Jews of Europe were confronting a monster coming to destroy them, very often they concealed their public comments by referring to Haman and not to Hitler. The connection was rather astonishing, in which Jews reached back into their past and found language that described their present. Roy.
I have a question. I'm wondering if the commentators noticed it and made comments on it. Is that Amalek attacked and killed the stragglers, not the main core, according to the text? So is there any point that we should note that it wasn't the group that was attacked, but rather stragglers? And therefore, it may be our responsibility to make sure we don't have stragglers. The importance of the collective is kind of mentioned here. Here's a question.
I avoided making comments, but Roy, I loved your comment. Hadn't really thought about it. It is our responsibility not to have any stragglers in our community. I like that. I like that a lot. Next year, I may deliver the sermon and forget to mention your name. But that really, that touched me. Very, very, very interesting. Mara Harv? Was that Harv or Mara?
So I want to go back to thou shalt not forget, because I think it connects for me to the question of when do we become not Jews in our response to those who would wipe us out. And in fact, if our response is to ignore all of the other instructions in Torah in terms of how we should be, if we don't listen to that divine small voice within us and only seek revenge, then it seems that our enemies have succeeded in wiping us out.
Risa.
Two things. The first is about stragglers. Just reminded me that when we traveled in Israel all those years with all the teenagers, we always put the slowest people first so that they would set the pace and there would be no stragglers. And we were always very careful about that. So it's interesting. And the other thing is that the thing about remembering here is do not forget actually has within it, and what we're really talking about is do not forget and then act upon what you are remembering. And it's the action that we're talking about, not the memory.
I would like now to remind us all of a lovely gentleman, I think he was a dentist, named Baruch Goldstein. And by a show of hands, just like this, I've said Baruch Goldstein. Who remembers Baruch Goldstein? I see. Okay, good. I see a few. In 1994, February 25th, because of the differences in the calendar, Purim was underway. Baruch Goldstein took an automatic weapon and went into the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron. And he went to a mosque in which Muslims were praying. And he massacred 29 Palestinians that day as an act, I'm not going to get into which way it goes, of memory or action dealing with Amalek. He viewed Palestinians as Amalek and viewed, therefore, the command Zachor al Tishkach as a command to slaughter. And he did indeed do that. He was American-Israeli, born in the States, made Aliyah. In a recent survey, 10% of Israelis think Baruch Goldstein is a national hero. For better and for worse, the number is that. We can make of it whatever we want. 10% of Israelis consider a man who went into a mosque with an automatic weapon and slaughtered 29 Palestinians as a national hero. Why didn't he kill more? The outrage overcame the fear in the mosque, and he was trampled to death. His burial place is a place of pilgrimage for some Israelis. Just this week, I saw a picture of an obviously Orthodox gentleman bending over and kissing his tombstone.
Oh my God.
You got 15 minutes, honey.
It's still
You
hard,
wait?
right? I'm sorry. I'm a little bit, like verklempt.
Yeah, really.
The notion of bending over and kissing the tombstone of a mass murderer as a religious Jewish act. Risa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no?
I didn't lower my hand.
Okay, well, I will always call upon you. Donna?
Yes, I agree with you, Rabbi. Absolutely. I want to give an example of an Esther moment that I had recently. A man outside of the building said, I hate the Jews. I didn't say anything. I feed the homeless. I came upstairs, made sandwiches for the kids, and I brought him a sandwich. He goes, oh, you're an angel. I said, but I'm Jewish. He goes, oh, I'll never say that again. And I think that we have an avenue, a pathway through reaching out, even if people don't want to reach out to their enemies, reach out to people and heal the wounds. And like Jim says, there's got to be a pathway. Plus, the other thing is cutting up what Mars is cutting at the roots is the financing of from Iran. Politically, we have to stop this financing the Hamas some way. We have to globally do that with the Jews around the world, stop them from being financed. But the love and reaching out and healing is going to have more power that people won't even want to finance them. And we have to do something with music and food.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I don't condone what Baruch Goldstein did, but I feel that the oppression and defensiveness that we have felt for centuries and centuries is made a lot of people feel helpless. And I think perhaps that's why his tombstone has become a place of refuge, so to speak, for some people.
Okay, now, was it Roy, forgive me, was it Roy who suggested only the stragglers are talking about stragglers and we should not permit stragglers? Roy, was that your comment?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted, just wanted to locate it. I prepared incredibly well. I am going to turn in the Bible, which you do not have, but it's here, it's Jewish. I am going to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 15. 1 Samuel chapter 15. And if I do this right, it's on page 602. If I can see it, I will find it. I'm in 600. Okay. 606, 602, here. 602, okay. Now,
oh, wow.
1 Samuel, verse 15, 1-3. Samuel said to Saul, you remember Saul is the first king of Israel, preceding David, and Samuel was the prophet who selected Saul and then ordained him to be king. Thus, chapter 15, Samuel said to Saul, I am the one God sent to anoint you king over the people Israel. Right? That's right. Therefore, listen now to God's command. Thus said the Lord of hosts, I am exacting the penalty for what Amalek did to Israel, for the assault they made upon them on the road on their way up from Egypt. Now, go, attack Amalek, and proscribe, we'll get to that word, all that belongs to him. Spare no one, but kill alike men and women, infants and sucklings, oxen, sheep, camels, and asses. Saul destroyed Amalek, proscribed the people, putting them to the sword. But Saul, in this incident, spared Agag, the ruler of Amalek, the sheep, the best sheep, oxen, and the best lambs, and all that was of value. He didn't destroy them. Then God said to Samuel, I regret that I made Saul king, for he has turned away from me and not carried out my command. How about that? We have Amalek appearing again. This is no small matter, right? It keeps resurfacing. And the command is don't just, be aware that Amalek tried to kill the weak behind you. Go out and kill, murder, destroy men, women, babies, sucklings, oxen, sheep, camels, asses, all of value. And when Saul failed to do this, he lost kingship. If you will, he was fired by God in the most interesting way. He ended up being killed in battle. The point I think the Bible is making here is that they treat the command to slaughter Amalek very seriously.
Rabbi, may I say something?
Briefly, yes.
Yes, sir. I agree with Adonai, with God on this, because he sees everything. But there's a way, we as humans are, it's a complex issue. It really is. But we have got to get to the root of what's allowing Hamas to flourish and get rid of it.
Thank you. Now we're going to, there's much more to do today, but I have never had this conversation with a study group ever in my life. Covers a long time. Never did it. Most Jews read the Torah, the Megillah, and have no idea that their rabbis are excising chapter 9. I'm not going to read it. And then the conversation about who is Amalek becomes very pressing. So my last question, which I wrote right here, do you think that this lesson about Amalek in some ways affects the Israeli Jewish response to Hamas? And we're not doing politics, right? It's a question. Do you think that this, I tried to demonstrate depth of involvement. This is no slight matter. Do you think it affects the way some Israelis view the war against Hamas? And I have a bunch of hands. I see Rebecca, I see Steve, I see Jim, I see Mara. I'm going to stop there. There are more, but remind me, Rebecca, Steve, Jim, Mara. Okay.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's a way of justifying the war.
Jim. Oh, Steve. I blew. Sorry.
Steve first.
Steve.
I think even if some ultra-Orthodox do, it's interesting that they still don't want to fight in the army. I think the vast majority of Israelis see it as protecting the existence of the country and really aren't putting it into biblical terms.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Jim?
Who the hell cares?
Yes, the most Israelis are not putting it into biblical terms, but they don't run the government. It's a right-wing, ultra-Orthodox coalition of people who believe the land was given to them by God, and they'll do anything to hold on to it, even if it means destroying the whole nation and upsetting the balance of the so-called balance of power in the Middle East. It's very much a religious war, and that's what's wrong with it. You know, we have to deal with the decades of abuse and ignorance of the Palestinians who have been abused and mistreated by not just this government, but by the world since 1948 and earlier.
So
I agree with that.
Take Jim's statement and just do the obvious. The government is ultra-Orthodox, and I'm going to go back to my question. They're the ones most likely to have totally imbibed chapter 9. of the Megillah. They know about it because they hear it every year. By the way, what is the most important mitzvah of Purim? The number one mitzvah. Risa.
You have to hear and listen to every word of the Megillah.
Every single word. And that is a key mitzvah. So, Jim, those ultra-Orthodox guys who are running the government know this passage by heart. Okay, where was I? Who comes up next? I forget. I'm sorry.
Howard.
Howard?
I don't know whether Israel is run by an ultra right-wing, ultra-Orthodox government or not. But I can certainly, I was very struck, I think maybe it was October 8th or 9th, Netanyahu's speech. I was very disturbed by it because he definitely, he mentioned Amalek, and he also talked about vengeance, not retribution, vengeance. So I think that was terrible. But I don't know whether he's an ultra right wing. I don't think he is. And I don't think
he made a pact with the devil, though.
I don't even think that the Israeli government is, it has two Meshuggahs.
I'd love to come over there and run for office. I bet I'd win.
Well, they having very important roles in it, but
would you stop enjoying the conversation?
Okay, sir.
What?
Yes, sir.
Eric? You're
It
muted,
sounds
Eric.
like, excuse me. You can hear me? Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like Pinchas. I want to contrast Pinchas and what happened to him and the Purim story. Also, it sounds like my favorite speech of Barry Goldwater at the Republican National Convention. Extremism in the face of liberty is no vice. Moderation is pursuit of I can't remember it well, but it sounds like the Barry Goldwater speech, which would turn me into a libertarian conservative.
Oh my God, save us from that. Okay, Tamara, you had made some physical gestures saying that you agreed that this does have an impact on Israeli society. Do you want to comment on that? No.
No, I think it's already been said. Everyone knows the story. And this, I hear that from people. And as was said, it was officially announced by Netanyahu. So, yeah, it's very influential. In Israel, they read the 9th chapter.
And it's important if we want to understand all of the negotiations. Among the pieces to be understood is that a number of the Israelis negotiating know this very well and know the Zachor, Al Tishkach, remember, don't forget, and how Saul lost his kingdom because he failed to completely destroy Amalek. And one of the interesting things is Saul completely failed to completely destroy Amalek, and out of that remnant, Haman emerged at a different period, according to the story. And then we go back to Jim's comment about tearing up the roots. And if you don't tear up the roots, the poisonous weed will flourish. Then
You're right on, Rabbi.
Then you go to, wait a second, if that's the people we've become, our enemies have succeeded in destroying Judaism. What are we if we are a vengeful people? what does that say to us? What does that say about our value? I stopping now because this is where we have to stop. I have to thank you. I have to, Tamara, did you want to say something?
Just quickly to reiterate what Jim said, going to the root can mean more than one thing. It can mean killing, or it can mean taking seriously the root of the problem and doing something about that.
Okay. Okay. I thank you for, do you know how many places in the world could have such a civil discussion without anyone attacking anyone and people taking dramatically important different positions? The Hebrew response to what happened today is kol hakavod, well done, well done. And it is an honor.
Thank you.
A part of this community. We are going to move now to Kaddish. We're going to move now to Kaddish. Yes, and my papers are all here. Wow. Those who have passed away during the past month: Myrna Engler, Jacob Furman, Thomas Kirk, Beto Kuchuk-Levy, Joseph Lowenstein, Alan Serrati, Dave Warren. The following the anniversaries of whose deaths have occurred during the past week: Richard Barish, Vernon Lee Bell, Izzy Berman, Ida Bernfeld, Sam Bluestone, J. Steve Brody, Julius, I guess this would be the same, Julius Steve Brody, Paul Scott Cohen, Helen Waxler Coleman, Sidney Davidson, Mitchell James Dresser, Harriet Ellis, Ellen Emmett, Munish Feinberg, Marty Feldman, Evelyn Fox, Santa Fox, Alan Friedman, John Gertis, Lillian Ginsburg, Philip Ginsburg, George Goldstein, Ronald Gordon, Anna Greenberg, Dolores Grossbart, Jane Haddad, Ambrose Holtzman, Beverly Jacobs, Leon Jano, Sandy Jarko, Sophie Jasmine Solomon Javaheri, Stephen Karp, William J. Kend. Barry Kesser, Anna Klein, Samuel Klein, Sidney Kolpas, Ed Landa, Myron Levy, Cecile Levy, Saul Leiber, Joseph Mobile Blanfard, George Mann, Neil Markman, Joseph Moses Miller, Sylvia Morrison, Jerome Ucher, Herb Nadich, Lita Naim, Doris Nazarian, Saul Newman, Bertha Knight, Jacqueline Pashania, Leonard Perlman, Harry Perlman, Myrtle Lorch, Failser, Edgar Phillips, Albert Platt, William Pollock, Marco Hortus, Dennis Bryce Sanford Rieger, Eva Roman, Florence Rose, Esther Rosen, Sarah Rosen, Paul Rosenblum, Terry Sanders, Reva Sandler, Esther Schwade, Barry Shanbrom, Fran Shanbrom, Joel Shanbrom, Harry Shane, Susan Shaw, Buddy Schreier, Julian Zarati, Marion Smoot, Avril Solomon, Greta Solomon, Ida Sosnow, Rosa B. Speed, Aurelia Martinez Tapia, Rosalie Turner, Norman Turtle, Leah Valner, Stephen Weiss, Harold Zlotnick. We bear in mind as well the names of all of those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of horror and terror, those for whom there was no one to say Kaddish. We join together now in Kaddish. Yitgadal Shemei Rabbah Bi'almad Ba Li'utei Bi'amlit Malachutei V'chayechon yomechon, v'chayechon kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'b'na'oriv, v'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Papa Mavarach, Le'olam Le'olei Almighty.
Yitbarach,
Yitbarach, Yishtabach,
Shkaba,
Yitramam,
Shalom,
Yitadar,
Yachatar,
Yitalal,
Mikra,
Shnei Yishar,
Maya,
Le'ela
Leila
Minchal,
Minchal Birchata
Birchatav
Shem
Shemon, Tushpachatav,
Tushpachata Nefalata
Da'amiran
Damaran
V'Amam, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama
Yishlom
Rabbamu,
Rabba B'Shalom
V'chayim
Chaim Aleinu
Kol
V'Yokol
Yisrael,
Yisrael
V'imru,
V'Imru
Amen.
Amen.
Oseh
Oseh
Shalom,
Shalom B'Ram
Obav,
Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Yokol Yisrael V'Imru
Okay,
Amen.
but God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the nations and peoples of earth. And let us say,
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
much,
Shabbat Shalom.
so much for today.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
It's going to be okay. We're going to
Yeah.
change the world with music and love.
Okay. I hope.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. See you later. Be thinking of all of you.